Hello, comic book guys and gals, and welcome to Comic Mag Musings. This guy's your handsome yet humble Harvey host, Bill Miller. All right, I'm very excited. We are going to take a journey through the history of Harvey Comics, and hopefully we can determine why they ceased publication in the early 1980s. So please join me as we get started and dive right in. Harvey Comics was an American comic book publisher. It was founded in New York City by Alfred Harvey in 1941 after buying out the small publisher Brookwood Publications. His brothers, Robert B. Harvey and Leon Harvey, joined him shortly after. The company soon got into licensed characters, which by the 1950s became the bulk of their output. Harvey Comics started out as a conventional comic book publisher. It published comic books that featured a combination of characters it inherited from Brookwood Publications, licensed characters such as the Green Hornet and Joe Palooka, and its own original characters. One of the early original features includes Black Cat Comics. Black Cat was Linda Turner, an actress and stuntwoman turned investigator. The series followed her crime-fighting adventures. There was Speed Comics, featuring Shock Gibson, a former scientist who gains the ability to store, generate, and control electricity after consuming a test formula. He can fire bolts of lightning and can fly. During World War II, he often teamed up with Captain Freedom, Black Cat, and the Girl Commandos. Other nascent original characters were the Spirit of 76, a soldier who dons a mask along with his great-grandfather's Revolutionary War uniform, and Captain 3D, a Kirby and Simon creation, who leaps from the pages of a book when the reader wears 3D glasses in order to battle the evil cat people. However, during the Golden Age, the majority of Harvey's titles featured licensed characters. Many of these comics were based on newspaper strips, consisting of both reprinted and original stories. Some of these titles were Terry and the Pirates, Steve Canyon, Mutt and Jeff, Joe Palooka, Dick Tracy, and Sad Sack. Sad Sack followed the experiences of a bumbling World War II private. Harvey published a prolific number of Sad Sack comics, ultimately totaling over 12 different series. Many of the other licensed characters were borrowed from Paramount Studios' theatrical Famous Studios animated series. These included such popular cartoons as Little Audrey, Herman and Catnip, Buzzy the Crow, Baby Huey, and Casper the Friendly Ghost. Casper is a pleasant, personable ghost who is often criticized by his uncles, the Ghostly Trio, for failing to haunt humans. Harvey produced over 35 comic series headlining Casper. Like many comic book publishers during the late 40s through the mid-50s, Harvey tried to diversify by following many of the popular trends. They produced a couple of Western titles, like Western Tales, and Black Cat Comics, which briefly became Black Cat Western. They also published several romance titles. Among these were First Romance, Love Lessons, and First Love Illustrated. Lee Elias couldn't help himself. He had horror comics in his blood. Even his romance covers were somewhat creepy. Harvey was no stranger to the war comics genre. Some of the most war comics increased in popularity during the Korean War. In the 1940s, you would see war comics, but not to the extent that you would see them in the 1950s, particularly the early 1950s through the mid-50s. Harvey produced several series, including Warfront, War Battles, and most of their war comics ceased by the late 1950s. And as you can see, they were not averse to reusing cover art. Among pre-code comic book collectors, Harvey is best known for its work in the horror genre. Some of the most notorious and infamous horror covers were created by Harvey. Issue 25 of Witch's Tales, Chamber of Chills, issue 23. Perhaps the most desired pre-code horror comic, Black Cat Comics 50. Tomb of Terror, number 16. And maybe the best known pre-code horror comic, Chamber of Chills, number 19. This image was used as the album cover art for the Misfits' Die, Die, My Darling. Harvey had an incredible stable of comic book artists. Talented veterans like Rudy Pillay, Bob Powell, and Joe Serta. Comic book legends such as Al Avison and Warren Kramer. And the leader of the bullpen was the master of horror, Lee Elias. While Kramer became the longest running, the longest tenured, and most prolific Harvey artist, Elias was the premier cover artist during the Golden Age. After the advent of the Comics Code Authority in the mid-1950s, Harvey reduced the number of titles being published, particularly in the horror and war genres. they doubled down on their kid-friendly titles. Among these titles were the trio of Harvey Girls. Now, this is a Dark Horse reprint from 2009 of several stories featuring the Harvey Girls. Through Paramount, Harvey had Little Audrey. Though different in style, Little Audrey was created as an attempt to emulate the success of Marge's Little Lulu. At the end of the 40s, Harvey created Little Dot. Little Dot was in much the same vein as Little Audrey and Little Lulu, with the twist of repetitious images of dots and circles. A few years later, in 1953, Harvey created Little Lotta. Lotta was formulaic, similar to both Little Audrey and Little Dot. Her defining characteristic was her insatiable appetite. She is very similar to a female version of the Tubby character from the Little Lulu series. The three girls would often interact with one another within the pages of Richie Rich. In a subsequent attempt at diversification, Harvey half-heartedly launched a few superhero titles during the 60s. Fighting American was a Captain America cloned creation from Simon and Kirby. Harvey produced a one-shot in 1966. They also took a flyer on another Simon creation, B-Man, within the pages of Double Dare Adventures. Barry Eames, a NASA technician, commandeered a space probe which had just returned from Mars. While investigating the craft, a meteorite inside split open and Barry was swung by a swarm of angry alien bees. The Martian insect venom gave B-Man super strength, intelligence, and an advanced healing factor. Yet again, trying a character from Joe Simon, they published 2 issues of Jigsaw. An astronaut encounters an alien race on the moon. Using their science, his body is rebuilt in a patchwork manner that seems to give him superhuman powers. And finally, we have Spy-Man. Spy-Man was a secret agent named Johnny Chance. While defusing a nuclear bomb, he lost his left hand. He was eventually fitted with an electro-robot hand, with each finger a different tool or weapon. Although he didn't actually work on the book, Spy-Man was created by Jim Steranko, and it was his first professional work. As you can imagine, Harvey's foray into superheroes didn't really pan out, and they quickly shifted back nearly all of their resources to the kid-friendly titles. Casper had long been a good performer for Harvey. An early spin-off was Spooky, the tough little ghost. Spooky has a derby hat and a Brooklyn accent. Unlike Casper, Spooky likes scaring people, but much like Casper, he has a compassionate side. Early on, Harvey created a couple of companion characters to Casper. Wendy, the Good Little Witch, premiered as a backup feature in Casper number 20 from 1954. Although a witch, much like Casper, she was good at heart. As a baby, she was abandoned upon the doorstep of her aunties, Thelma, Velma, and Zelma. Her eponymous title debuted in 1960. Hot Stuff the Little Devil first saw print in Hot Stuff number 1 in 1957. He could be mischievous, could produce fire, and carried a magical sentient pitchfork. Much like Casper and the Ghostly Trio, Hot Stuff would often upset his demonic cohorts by performing good deeds. Hot Stuff appeared in nearly 10 titles, including Hot Stuff Sizzlers, Hot Stuff Creepy Caves, and Devil Kids starring Hot Stuff. Harvey first created Richie Rich in 1953, although he didn't get his first series until 1960. He was an extremely wealthy yet kind boy, following the formula of many of his Harvey predecessors, beginning with Casper. However, Richie Rich soon became Harvey's most popular character. The flagship title ran for over 250 issues, ending in 1991 after a 4-year hiatus during the 80s. In 1972, Harvey went all in on Richie Rich. They introduced 5 new titles: Richie Rich Bank Books, Richie Rich Diamonds, Richie Rich Jackpots, Richie Rich Money World, and Richie Rich Riches. He was soon starring in over 32 different titles every 60 days. He was the most successful American comic book character during the 1970s. Harvey ceased publication in 1982. And the founder, Alfred Harvey, retired. In 1984, a deal fell through that would have allowed Marvel Comics to license some of the Harvey characters. Marvel soon worked with veteran Harvey writer and artist Lenny Herman to create Royal Roy for the Star Comics imprint. Harvey sued and the title was dropped after 6 issues. In 1989, Jeffrey Montgomery, HMH Communications, purchased Harvey. They immediately distributed Harvey's animated catalog, Harvey Toons. They started reprinting some titles in the early 90s and ultimately optioned Richie Rich and Casper for feature films. Marvel published and distributed a couple of Casper titles toward the end of the decade. Alan Harvey retained the rights to Sad Sack and Black Cat and has published some collections. In 2007, Dark Horse Comics published a few volumes of Harvey Comics classics, and in 2010 began publishing Harvey Comics Treasuries. What went wrong? Why did Harvey cease publishing toward the end of the Bronze Age? I suspect the trouble began in the late 60s, at the tail end of the Silver Age. It can be a challenge for a kid-friendly publisher to succeed when only publishing kid-friendly titles. It certainly isn't impossible. Archie Comics has managed to stay afloat and even experienced a renaissance of sorts towards the beginning of this century. However, this is in large part to a few different things. Archie updated some of the content to make it more relevant to current readers. They also took some risks by exploring more mature content and Afterlife with Archie.
and they leaned into the latent sexuality of Betty and Veronica, ultimately pairing them with the likes of Red Sonja and Vampirella. Finally, they adapted Archie and Sabrina for television, targeting more mature teen and young adult audience. Harvey failed to do those things. Harvey's stories are formulaic and have been consistently marketed toward young readers. Harvey failed to introduce more mature themes into their existing titles. Nor did they launch new titles with more relevant topics. Harvey didn't update the content to reflect the times of their readers. At a time when Marvel was producing heavy-hitting, relevant stories that appealed to teens and college students, Harvey was writing for the same 5 to 12-year-old demographic it had been catering to for over 40 years. Harvey's readers aged out, and Harvey didn't have new titles that could successfully appeal to their readers' growing sophistication. Coupled with this, Harvey Toons wasn't prevalent enough to bring in the new readers. Harvey was losing readers faster than they were able to replace them. In the midst of this, it probably didn't help that Harvey bet the farm on Richie Rich, to the detriment of the other characters. They oversaturated the market with Richie Rich titles while failing to maintain and attract new readers for their stable of other characters. Well, those are my thoughts on Harvey Publications. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree? Please let me know in the comments.
I hope you enjoyed that exploration of Harvey Comics. And if you did, I would encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted as soon as I release new content. Thumbs up and comments are always appreciated. And remember, we're taking over the world one comic book at a time.